Welcome to the Third House Podcast. I'm Erica, your host, and together we'll unravel the astrological and psychological tapestry that shapes our lives. Join me as we navigate the threads that connect our chart to our emotions, relationships, and inner world. Get ready for illuminating conversation and insight, because self-discovery has no bounds. Hello, everyone. Welcome to your 2025 year ahead astrological podcast. I will be doing month by month. There will be chapters, so you can easily jump back to each month. However, please listen through to the end because I will be concluding with some general notes and also some perspective on 2026. So in my opinion, I think 2025 into 2026 is really shifting us into sort of a new chapter, a new wave, sort of like 2020 did, but obviously in a very different way. So definitely listen through to the end so that you can sort of wrap up and gain that perspective of what 2025 might be really gearing you up for into 2026. So again, this is not conclusive. I do not include every transit. If you want something more detailed that you can have with you on your device or your phone, I do have a very lengthy, I believe it's about 39 pages, about 60 transits completely broken down with advice based on each rising sign, available on my website. The link is in the description below for that. So if you want to grab that guide first, download it to your device, and then listen through this podcast episode to add additional notes about, anything that comes up for you, please do so. If not, I would definitely take notes regardless, because I do go through a lot of key dates, things to look out for, preparatory shadow type periods, that will definitely help prep you before the actual transit happens. But again, this is not conclusive, so please refer to your own chart, your own placements. And as always, I do offer one-on-one sessions for those that really want to go in depth or just need some help or perspective along the way that's very specific to your fingerprint, your birth chart. And the link is in the description below for that. And lastly, my last announcement, I will be increasing my prices, not drastically, but as we go into the new year, as I'm increasing my workload, I am going to increase my prices. So just be aware of that. Please subscribe and come back each month, especially if you're new here. Every month, I provide a lot of supplemental content, monthly horoscopes that break down the transits in more detail along the way. So again, definitely grab your 2025 yearly guide, which goes into a lot more detail as we go through this, or just grab your notes, get ready, buckle up. And again, don't forget to listen through to the end to really take all of this information and apply it to sort of what you might be gearing up for into 2026. Hello, Cancer risings. On January 6th, 2025, Mars is going to retrograde back into your Cancer first house of self, body, appearance, identity, and how you show up in the world. More specifically, Mars rules your 10th house of career, business, public recognition, as well as your Scorpio 5th house of creativity, self-expression, joy, pleasure, romance, and children, if applicable. So this is really bringing us back to revising anything or revising how we take action. For you, particularly around maybe career, business, creativity, self-expression, romance, or something playing out with children, if that's applicable. But it's really potentially bringing us back to some story that was playing out regarding these themes roughly around the end of October, beginning of November 2024. So if you're listening to this in 2024, just note some things that come up regarding, definitely individually regarding you, with career or business, public recognition, any creative projects, self expression, romance, joy, and children that come up that you might be heavily revising or revising how you take action regarding these themes. On January 13th, 2025, there will be a full moon in your Cancer first house of self at 24 degrees, and this will actually be conjunct or joined with Mars retrograde at 27 degrees. So I'm not going to talk about every new moon and full moon in this podcast episode, but on January 13th, this full moon is very interesting to me, or stood out, because it is really illuminating you, your identity, how you show up in the world. But it is really highlighting the first and seventh house axis in your chart. So basically the axis of you versus the other, you versus, how do you take care of your needs versus the needs of others, your needs and the needs of your partner. So this full moon is really highlighting that axis, but it's also playing a part in this culminating moment or illuminating moment around you in those areas regarding some revisionary aspect regarding career, business, public recognition, creative projects, self-expression, and or children. January 27th, Venus is going to enter shadow. So Venus is going to enter that shadow period of contextual clues that will likely come up, that will kind of basically give you those contextual clues as to what you could be reviewing and revising regarding Venusian themes. For you, this is the area of your fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate. Venus also rules your 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals. So pay attention to anything regarding, your living situation, people you live with, home, family, property, real estate, as well as sort of, your friends, groups, communities, and your long-term goals. Any stories that sort of come up, give you those contextual clues as to what you're going to be reviewing and revising regarding what you really love and value pertaining to those themes over the next couple weeks, specifically through January 27th through February 28th, 2025, before Venus goes retrograde and we start that revisionary process. January 29th, 2025, we're really ending the month with this new moon at 9 degrees in your Aquarius 8th house of transformational work, investments, assets, other people's resources, including a partner's resources. So we get to wrap up January creating a new chapter, new goals. For you, this is a finance house, also the area of transformational work as well. So you could start new goals, new chapters, new beginnings that could play out over the next 5 or 6 months regarding any sort of financial management, financial goals, paying off debt, increasing resources, investments, assets, etc. As we get into February, things really start to heat up, in my opinion. So February 1st, 2025 is worth noting because Venus in Pisces, so Venus will be in your Pisces 9th house of higher education, teaching, writing, publishing, long distance travel, spirituality. Pay attention in particular if you have your midheaven in your Pisces 9th house as well, because Venus is in shadow here, like I mentioned in January. However, Venus is exalted in Pisces. So this is a very, Venus has a lot of strength, Venus has a lot of resources. And Venus will also go conjunct the North Node at 28 degrees here on February 1st, 2025. So this is really amping up the story, tying in particular themes, again, tying in 11th house themes for you, friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals, and also themes of that Libra fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate, because that's what Venus rules in your chart. So pay attention to any of those themes sort of increasing, amplifying regarding maybe, your work, teaching, publishing, traveling, spirituality, especially any spiritual work if you're in those types of fields. However, Venus is in shadow. So, we're still in that building of contextual clues where we could definitely go into a period of pausing, reviewing, revising, working things out over the next month or two. But February 1st, I would pay very close attention, note what happens, additionally, because Venus will actually leave shadow, go retrograde, and go back to being conjunct the North Node here on April 1st, but at its most exalted degree. So Venus is exalted in Pisces, but Venus is most exalted at 27 degrees of Pisces, where Venus will retrograde back to 27 degrees Pisces and be exactly conjunct the North Node, which is very significant. So this is a seriously exalted Venus retrograde conjunct the North Node, which is, our life direction, where we want to move towards. But Venus will still be retrograde. So we're still in this internal sort of revisionary process, but it's very, very, very strong. And I do think that as I get through the next couple months, you'll start to notice like we are going to have all these personal planets do their retrograde movement, two of which are going exactly conjunct the North Node, which is sort of clicking a lot of us into place in terms of overall life direction, even purpose for some. And 2025 is really major shifts, major changes that are going to set us up for many years to come. So it's just something to keep in mind. And again, I'll go into a little bit of perspective regarding 2026 at the end. So stay tuned for that. Back to February. February 7th, 2025. Again, I'm going to be a broken record with this North Node Pisces business, but there is so much happening in Pisces. So February 7th, Neptune goes conjunct the North Node in Pisces at 28 degrees. So I actually think that this is going to loop back or complete potentially a cycle with Neptune. So for some of you, you might be able to think back to 2016 when the South Node was conjunct Neptune in Pisces, where many of you might have seen some change, some releasing, some letting go, or some turning points that have essentially built up and culminated to this North Node point about, in 2025. So we're kind of coming full circle where now the North Node is meeting Neptune in Pisces at a point of increase instead of decrease, a point of increase instead of releasing. So if you can think back to 2016, sort of what was really changing in the area. For some of you, it could be career with your midheaven and your Pisces ninth. Some of you, it could be, travel, teaching, continuing your education, spirituality, knowledge, anything along those lines. There could have been some changes in that area that are now sort of giving you the opportunity to sort of increase. February 12th, 2025, there will be a full moon in Leo. This will be a full moon in your Leo second house of earned income and self-worth at 24 degrees. This full moon, in my opinion, is worth noting because it will form a T-square with Mercury and Uranus. So Mercury and Uranus can, especially T-squares or squares, I have noticed it can increase sort of our nervous system So this full moon is really culminating in the area of your finances and your self-worth, but it's creating change to the areas, or potential change to the areas of um, your 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals, where that's basically where the apex planet will be and have the most pressure to act or make change. So this is a full moon. The moon moves very quickly. So this might happen and you might only feel this for the day, essentially. Um, but it's something to worth noting. It is happening. It's tying in the themes of your financial houses, your self-worth, any transformational work, and sort of that apex planet in the area of friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals. Um, Having a lot of energy, a lot of pressure to act or help with any change. So just something to keep in mind. Then I'm going to end February on February 23rd when, hallelujah, Mars goes direct at 17 degrees Cancer in your first house of self, body, appearance, identity, and how you show up in the world. And again, Mars rules at 10th house of career, business, and public recognition. Also, your fifth house of creativity, self expression, joy, pleasure, romance, and children, if applicable. So, Mars moving forward here might definitely sort of give you the green light regarding anything that you've had a lot of revision, where many of you might have been revising really how you take action regarding your business, your career, your public recognition, how you take action with any creative projects, self expression, romance, especially if you're single, dating, this area will definitely be highlighted, and children as well. So maybe some of you have gone through a heavy revisionary process around children or childcare, or a situation with your children that you're now sort of being able to move forward on, at least hopefully. So you can also think back to what was coming up starting roughly around the beginning of October 2024. This is where Mars entered shadow. So Mars was direct at the same degree, and now Mars retrograded back to this degree and is moving forward. So anything that was sort of sensitive or really coming up in October, you this is where the full circle moment starts to start and move forward. So this has been quite the journey with Mars. But again, anything to do with those themes that I discussed, and that very welcomed forward movement for many of us. March 1st, 2025 is when Mercury goes conjunct the North Node in your Pisces ninth house of higher education, teaching, publishing, traveling, spirituality, religion. Now, Mercury rules your 12th house of the subconscious, and it also rules your Virgo third house of communication, daily environment, exchanging information. So, in terms of integrating house themes and rulership, this looks like increasing themes around information, teaching, exchanging information, but also any like mental, like what's going on mentally, what's going on with any subconscious thought patterns, shifts in spirituality, beliefs, knowledge, all of that. Now, it's important to keep in mind that on March 1st, although Mercury goes conjunct the North Node at this point of increase in this ninth house, it is going to enter shadow today. So from March 1st through March 14th, Mercury will be in the shadow period, building contextual clues. There could be stories or situations that play out that you will likely review, revise, maybe have different perspective or a different plan regarding anything to do with sort of mental thought patterns, education, teaching, writing, publishing, traveling, communication, exchanging ideas. So, very mercurial things here. It's also very important to note that on March 1st, Venus goes retrograde as well. So Venus has been in that shadow period. So Venus going retrograde is really starting that revisionary period, of what potentially played out from the end of January through the last day of February. Now, Venus rules that fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate, and it also rules the 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long term goals. So, those themes are also on the table in terms of heavy revision, what you really love, value, your connection to them, and sort of reviewing and revising those areas. In particular, how it affects sort of teaching, traveling, career, if your midheaven is in Pisces, um, any higher education, publishing, writing type of work. Now, February 14th, 2025, this is where I think, we have that full moon total lunar eclipse in Virgo at 23 degrees. So I think it's important to note that although this is happening, this is a full moon eclipse, full moon on steroids, really culminating and illuminating the area of communication, siblings, short distance travel, exchanging information, your neighborhood, really your day to day. This is also where you have appointments, errands, anything like that. So, some of you, it might just be the day to day, mundane, immediate environment type of stuff. However, if your midheaven is in Pisces and your IC is in your Virgo third house, pay attention to home, family, property, and real estate themes as well. This full moon total lunar eclipse in Virgo is ruled by Mercury. And like I just mentioned, Mercury is in shadow and is about to go retrograde the following day. So we have the eclipse in Virgo on the 14th, ruled by Mercury, which on the 15th, so the following day, goes retrograde. So this is interesting because it's sort of like a change, a culminating moment regarding those 30 house themes that I listed, in addition to, depending on your natal chart, if it's home, family, property, and real estate, tying in with your IC in Virgo and your MC in Pisces. But it's sort of like maybe this culminating moment or the shift or the change, but the ruler of the eclipse being in shadow and literally stopped in the sky about to go retrograde the following day is sort of like, but wait. So if there's a lot of things shifting, changing, a lot of moving parts, my advice, generally speaking, again, I don't know your natal chart, would be to pause, take a break, and see where things might slow down or might go into more of a revisionary period despite things sort of shifting and changing a lot with this eclipse season. And where there's, one eclipse, there's another. And the second will be on March 29th, 2025, where we have this new moon partial solar eclipse in Aries at 9 degrees. So, this new moon partial solar eclipse in Aries will be in your Aries 10th house of career, business, public recognition. So, again, this is still tying in themes to career, business, public recognition, and also home, family, property, and real estate for some. But really, this is a strong new beginning in the area of career, business, and public recognition. But again, I don't look at things individually. I'm trying to look at things as the whole story. Mars rules your Aries 10th house of career, business, and public recognition, and just recently went direct. So you've had a long revisionary period around maybe something in business, career, public recognition. And now you're getting this new moon solar eclipse in this area, kind of creating this new opportunity, this new beginning at 9 degrees, where Mercury also went retrograde at 9 degrees. So there is this new beginning, but again, it looks like Mercury is sort of keeping us, I don't want to say in a holding pattern, but sort of like there's things happening, but because Mercury is went retrograde at the same degree, I think it could be tied to the story of saying like, hey, we're going to have a pause. Maybe we're going to revise some contracts, some plans, some situation that's playing out before we really get the green light and move forward. And lastly, on March 30th, 2025, Neptune will enter your Aries 10th house of career, business, and public recognition. Now, the last time Neptune was in Aries was about 1861. So you definitely were not alive, which this was around the time of the outbreak of the Civil War, Abe Lincoln era, where we definitely saw a lot of change, at least in the United States. But I think globally, we could see this more spiritual, dissolving, illusionary planet move into a very energetic, driven sign and eventually meet up with, or Saturn will eventually meet up with sort of dissolving boundaries, dissolving structures, dissolving outdated systems essentially. And for you, Cancer rising, this is really in the area of career, business, and public recognition. So I think this could be really an opportunity to dissolve things that are really no longer working for you career wise, dissolve any structures that aren't serving you anymore or aren't setting you up for success. Maybe they once did, but we'll get into the Saturn Neptune because Saturn rules your seventh house of marriage, partnership, including personal and professional, and also your eighth house of investments, assets, other people's resources. So I think it's tying in themes of partnership, whether it's personal or professional, but also some financial themes regarding sort of, what's no longer working, what new structures need to be initiated to sort of create the new level of longevity that you might be looking for. But we'll get into that. April, in my opinion, is where I think we really start to see results. Because on April 1st, 2025, we have the Venus retrograde conjunct the North Node at 27 degrees, which is the most exalted degree. So remember February 1st when Venus was in shadow conjunct the North Node? Venus is still retrograde here, but again, it's at its most exalted degree in Pisces. So this is very, very strong Venus in this revisionary period regarding this house and regarding Venus ruled areas of your chart. So this would be your social network, your goals, as well as your home, family, property, and real estate. So again, very exalted, very strong, conjunct the North Node. I think, the overall life direction, the purpose, the direction we really want to move towards, where it's strengthening. Maybe you're seeing it at this point, but it's still that revisionary period. So just hold tight because she's gonna go direct, and things I think things are gonna pop off. But April 7th, 2025, Mercury finally goes direct at 26 degrees Pisces. So again, Mercury rules at 12th house of the subconscious, third house of that communication, daily environment, short distance travel, exchanging ideas and communicating. So Mercury goes direct at 26 degrees Pisces in that ninth house of higher education, teaching, publishing, travel, spirituality, religion. So this really is a green light, especially because it joins the North Node on April 10th. So, really, from like April 7th through April 10th, give or take a day or two, I think you're going to see a lot of direct forward movement, tying in themes to maybe your life vision, subconscious thought patterns, your communication, exchanging ideas, short distance travel that could start to increase. But also keep in mind when Mercury goes direct and conjunct the North Node, it's going to trine Mars in your Cancer first house of self, body, appearance, and identity at 27 degrees. So, this could definitely indicate that whatever you were reviewing and revising in January of 2025 regarding career, business, public recognition, creativity, self expression, and any situation that you were revising with children, if applicable, this could definitely play a part in that Mercury conjunct the North Node forward movement. April 12th, 2025, Venus finally is direct, and it will also rule the full moon that takes place on April 12th. So this is very peculiar to me because it's like April 12th comes around, we start having like the dominoes start falling, these planets start moving direct, conjunct the North Node, purpose, life direction, where we want to go, right? And April 12th comes along and it's like this full moon culminates in your Libra fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate, really illuminating or culminating something around those fourth house themes. But with Venus being direct and it also rules this full moon, it's potentially giving us more of a green light where it's sort of like something's culminating around the foundation of your life. And Venus being direct and sort of moving towards that North Node direction overall, like where do I want to go? What's purpose? All of that stuff. It's sort of things are looking, to me, in my opinion, starting to look like things are starting to align. Things are starting to actually come into existence and move forward. But I would definitely pay attention to home, family, property, and real estate playing a part in sort of this Venus forward movement. Then on April 21st, 2025, Saturn goes conjunct the North Node in Pisces at 26 degrees. So again, Saturn rules your seventh house of marriage, long-term partnership, whether it's personal or professional, as well as your eighth house of transformational work, investments, assets, debt, loans, other people's resources. Again, tying those themes into this conjunction with the North Node, increasing purpose, life direction, where you want to go. Really, in addition to everything else going conjunct the North Node right now. So that tells me that as things are sort of moving forward, Saturn, the planet of work, discipline, also wanting to reward, is tying in themes of sort of what's going on with partnership, personal and professional, what's going on with resources, finances, that are also playing a part in this overall life direction, change in direction, purpose, etc. And then finally, April 24th, 2025, Venus goes direct conjunct the North Node. So Venus will finally be moving forward and by April 24th go conjunct the North Node at 26 degrees Pisces. So this again has been a long journey with Venus in my opinion, but Venus again rules that 11th house of friends, groups, communities, long-term goals. It also rules your 4th house of home, family, property, and real estate. And Venus goes direct conjunct the North Node. It's, done the shadow period. It's done the contextual clues. It's done the retrograde, the revisionary process, goes direct, goes conjunct the North Node, exalted in Pisces. So it's sort of like Venus has a lot of strength, more direct outward movement for many of us. And we can really, in my opinion, start to move forward or move on with everything we've had to maybe sort out, reconsider, or revise. Now, yes, we have more forward movement, at least that's what it looks like as April starts to unfold. But May, particularly May 18th, give or take a day or two, Jupiter at 25 degrees Gemini. So Jupiter is in your Gemini 12th house of the subconscious, your life visions, your dreams, where you may have limiting beliefs. It's sort of the house of undoing. And so Jupiter is expanding the area of the subconscious for you. It's nothing new, it's been here for some time at this point, but it's going to square the North Node and South Node in Pisces and Virgo. So it's sort of like we have all these planets going direct. We have all the situation going conjunct the North Node, life purpose, where you want to go, what you're hungry for, moving things forward. And then Jupiter squares these nodes. And Jupiter will be at a north bending, which is a point of increase. Now, Jupiter rules where all that stuff happened in Pisces, right? That ninth house, higher education, continuing education, teaching, publishing, spirituality, religion, long distance travel. And it also rules your Sagittarius sixth house of daily work, health, and routine. So again, if you have your midheaven and your Pisces ninth, I think this could have a double dose of career and work themes. But overall, 9 and 6th house themes are definitely on the table in terms of increasing regarding sort of what's going on mentally. I think some of you actually might have increasing ideas about work, increasing ideas around, teaching, publishing, knowledge, belief. That could definitely be increasing mentally before you maybe turn it into a tangible result. Then on May 24th, 2025, Saturn enters your Aries 10th house of career, business, and public recognition. Now, Saturn going through the 10th house, a lot of people worry about it. I'm not too worried about it. If Saturn gets a bad reputation. It's a planet of hard work. It's a planet of discipline. It's a planet of, structure. But Saturn wants to reward. But a Saturn in Pisces, where it's been, versus a Saturn in Aries is a very different Saturn. Saturn in Aries in your 10th house of career, business, and public recognition is more concerned about identity and is a much more PO'd Saturn. So we're talking about a much more fiery Saturn. And you also have to consider what Saturn rules in your chart, which is your Capricorn 7th house of marriage, long-term partnership, personal or professional. So definitely pay attention to business partnerships, needing more structure, more boundaries, right? More of those Saturnian themes, or, stronger foundations within personal and professional relationships that could affect the career, business, or public recognition that might be needed throughout this transit. But Saturn also rules your 8th house of transformational work, investments, assets, debt, loans. So this could start tying in themes of sort of money management, how you manage your money regarding your career, your business, and your public recognition. Again, it depends on your personal placements. I would pay more attention if your midheaven is in Aries. This can be a time where what you started 14, 15 years ago is really coming to fruition or a culminating moment, or you might be coming to, one thing I think that is not discussed with Saturn going through the 10th or Saturn conjunct the midheaven is a lot of times when you become more of an expert or you become known more as the leader or expert in your field. So I think that is underestimated and not talked about enough. But with that comes discipline, with that comes hard work, right? More leadership, more responsibility. So it's just something to think about as Saturn starts to tiptoe into that Aries 10th house of career, business, and public recognition. Another very important thing to consider, particularly through May 2025 through August of 2025, roughly, Neptune and Saturn will start to join in that Aries 10th house of career and public recognition. So, this is where you have the planet of boundaries and structures and the planet of dissolving and illusions coming together. So, it's sort of like you're dissolving boundaries. You are dissolving structures, dissolving outdated patterns. And for you, because it's Saturn, you could be dissolving old boundaries and structures regarding partnerships, business partnerships, how you manage money, transformational work um, that no longer serves you, and sort of restructuring new boundaries that support the new way or support, you know, what you want to put out career or business wise or just public recognition wise for the long term. Now, June 9th, to be specific, is a day to mark on your calendar because Jupiter will enter your Cancer first house of self, body, appearance, and identity. Now, if your midheaven is in your Pisces ninth house, you want to pay very close attention to this because Jupiter will start to trine your midheaven or your highest self, your career, public recognition angle in your chart. But it's also, Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. So since mid 2024, Jupiter was in your Gemini 12th house of the subconscious, but Jupiter is in detriment in Gemini, and it's not always a bad thing. It's just when a planet's in detriment, it tends to overdo it, overexert it when it may not need to. So Jupiter going into your Cancer first house will probably feel like a wash of good vibes and good energy, not only to your body, appearance, identity, how you show up in the world, but it's also going to tie in and trine the area of higher education, publishing, teaching, traveling, spirituality, and also that trine the fifth house of creativity, self expression, joy, pleasure, romance. So I actually think that those areas might start to really feel more positive, feel more naturally flowing compared to the past couple years. And like I said, pay very close attention. If your midheaven is in your Pisces ninth house, Jupiter rules your midheaven if it's in Pisces. So this is definitely going to help create influences of more expansion and abundance to those areas as well, particularly because Jupiter will be very well resourced in your Cancer first house. It has a lot of faith, it has a lot of strength to expand and create abundance. Now, June 15th, 2025, this will be sort of like the last little hit check that Jupiter gets, because June 15th is when Jupiter in your Cancer first house will square Saturn in your Aries 10th house of career, business, and public recognition. So it's sort of like Jupiter enters Cancer and is like, I'm exalted. I have strength. I have resources. I have faith. I want to expand. I want to create abundance. And I want to positively influence creativity and self expression and travel and spirituality and all this yummy good stuff. But then it squares Saturn first. And it's sort of like, okay, this looks like a little checkpoint from Saturn to say, before you create or expand in these particular areas, what else needs to change? Like where, and again, Saturn rules the area of partnership and money management or transformational work. So it could be a hip check of to say like, you know, who's on team Cancer, who's really supporting you, what are the necessary relationships or boundaries within relationships or money management or transformational work that's necessary to have we're talking about the first house, the body, to have the vessel, to have the body, the capacity for the expansion that you want to take, right? Because Saturn's always there to kind of say, like, what about long term? How does this support you long term? Don't just think immediate gratification. What is the long term gratification as well, especially tying in the seventh and eighth house themes to it? But again, this will be, the first little square here. Not too worried about it, but just also keep in mind that Neptune will also be with Saturn here. So it might require some dissolving of structures or boundaries that really aren't serving to create new structures and new boundaries that really support your body, your vessel, your appearance, your identity, and how you want to show up in the world, and how to balance that within partnership with others. Now, June 25th, 2025, there will be this new moon in your Cancer first house of self at 4 degrees, conjunct this Jupiter at 3 degrees. So I definitely think this new moon, this new beginning, new chapter, new opportunity is playing into this Jupiter situation. So it looks like by the end of the month, maybe you work out the kinks, you work out the square. The new moon comes along and is sort of like, okay, I'm ready to sort of initiate this new chapter and this new beginning for Jupiter to sort of move through that first house and create the necessary expansion in particular areas of your life. Then on June 29th, 2025, Mercury enters shadow at 3 degrees of Leo through July 18th, 2025. So Mercury is going to enter shadow in your Leo second house of earned income and self-worth. Now, Mercury rules your 12th house of that subconscious. It also rules your third house of communication. So this could be sort of mental thought patterns or communicating necessary things around your self-worth or your finances that come up that you'll likely review and revise over the next couple weeks. So as we get into July, Mercury is in that shadow period, sort of building those contextual clues in the area of your income and your self-worth. July 7th, 2025, Uranus enters your Gemini 12th house of the subconscious. Now, Uranus is the planet of change, of innovation, of rebellion, entering the area of your mind, your subconscious, your dreams, your visions. So Uranus is going to back up into your Taurus 11th house again briefly, but you are going to get that taste of those rapid changes, innovation to sort of any subconscious work, thought patterns, dreams, visions. Sometimes when Uranus goes through the 12th house, it can definitely sort of like, I've noticed people having even like psychic visions, intuitive visions kind of come up. Like a lot of the memories or things like that start to come up. So again, this is just tiptoeing into this area. So we have a long way to go with this transit. It lasts a long time, but you might get a little taste of that. Then on July 18th, 2025, Mercury finally goes retrograde at 15 degrees Leo, which is again in that second house of earned income and self-worth, really starting that revisionary period involving what came up around maybe finances, communication, subconscious work around June 29th through July 17th, give or take a day or two. Then on July 20th, July 21st-ish, we have Mars going conjunct the South Node in Virgo on the 20th, and then Venus in Gemini is going to square the nodes. So Mars, basically, cut a long story short, over these couple days, Mars is releasing something or letting something go that's no longer serving. And Venus is at a point of causing change due to an increase in something. So for you, again, the increase is happening. You're probably going to feel it more mentally. Like your mind's going to probably be more connected or more on fire, especially with Uranus recently entering this area. But Venus rules your friends, groups, communities, long term goals, also home, family, property, and real estate. So, themes that could be increasing could be something with family, home, property, real estate, things going on with your social network, your friends, your goals, while you're simultaneously releasing something to, Mars rules your business, your career, your public recognition, but also your creativity, your self expression, area of children, romance. So you could be releasing something that no longer serving you in your business, in your work, your public recognition. You could be releasing or finishing a sort of creative project. Or you could be releasing, if you have children, you could be releasing or letting something go, or finishing something, something going on with your children, completing that. And so, because it's happening in the third house, it could be very grounds for communication through releasing. So, talking about something, communicating something in order to initiate releasing something that's no longer serving you, in order for you to increase goals, social network, and sort of the roots of your chart, the foundation, how you feel nurtured, how you take care of yourself. And then as we get through August to August 11th, 2025, Mercury finally goes direct at 4 degrees of Leo. So whatever you are reviewing, revising, plans, contracts, etc., even communicating regarding finances, self-worth, it's really, green light, starting to move forward and onward. Then August 12th, 2025, Venus will be conjunct Jupiter at 14 degrees Cancer, where again, Jupiter is exalted here in your first house of self, body, appearance, identity, how you show up in the world. I would actually mark August down in particular if you're a Cancer rising, because you have the two benefics joining in your first house of self, body, appearance, identity, and one of which is exalted. So I particularly like this for Cancer risings because I think it's happening in a very individual, personal house for you. But this might feel really good for a lot of you, because Jupiter rules at ninth house of higher education, spirituality, religion, long distance travel. Again, if you're midheavens here, if you teach, you write, any of those things, you travel for work, pay close attention to this transit as well. But Venus rules your fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate, and also your 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long term goals. So it's really joining, the foundation of your chart. It's joining your friends, your goals, with growth. It's basically, if I could kind of like put this into one pretty little package, it's sort of like your friends and your communities and your goals and how you feel nurtured and what you consider home to feel like, in addition to your growth and potential. It's like all congealing together in your first house of self, body, appearance, and identity. So this is yummy. I like this for Cancer risings, particularly Saturday, August 16th. Jupiter will reach its most exalted degree within Cancer at 15 degrees. So this could be a particularly good day for Cancer risings in the area of health, work, daily routine, as well as sort of like spirituality, knowledge, travel, education, especially if your midheaven is in that Pisces ninth house. It could be tying in, career and public recognition themes. So if it is career and public recognition themes, you could feel very seen, you could feel very loved, you could feel like you have the support communities and goals sort of merging together for you. Either way, I just like this for you. I really like this. Um, Especially after, the last couple years where we've had some gnarly things happen, and Jupiter was in detriment in that 12th house of the subconscious. So it's sort of like, it's emerging out of that invisible area to a more visible area, and its exaltation really providing you more faith and abundance to you, your body, appearance, and identity. And August 23rd, 2025 is a very interesting new moon in Virgo. So this is a new moon in your Virgo third house of communication, siblings, short distance travel, exchanging information, your neighborhood, your day-to-day environment. Not too much of a big deal. However, this is sort of like, it's sort of ending the month of August where there is this new beginning, this new sort of like, maybe you're taking care of appointments or errands or necessary, things in your day-to-day environment. And it's quincunx Saturn in your Aries 10th house of career, business, and public recognition. So it's sort of like you're wanting to create this new chapter around your daily environment. Maybe you're reorganizing, maybe you're taking care of appointments and errands and paperwork and, all that necessary stuff in your day-to-day environment. And you're also required to make sort of this adjustment to the career, the business, and the public recognition in order to sort of initiate and allow this new chapter to start and sort of unfold over the next 5 or 6 months. September 1st, 2025 is when Saturn retrogrades back into your Pisces ninth house. So this isn't the biggest of deal, but it's sort of like giving you an opportunity, if you want, to tie up loose ends, restructure, or strengthen anything you want to work on regarding your growth and potential. So if there's anything sort of loose ends or any last bits in terms of, growth and potential, where you want to move towards, Saturn is sort of going back into this area and providing some opportunity to make any necessary changes, which the eclipses this month will, I think, help shift and change for sure. But Saturn retrograding back into your Pisces ninth house on September 1st could bring you back to Saturnian themes that may have come up around May of 2025 to revisit or adjust as needed. Now, getting to those eclipses, September 7th, 2025, we have the full moon total lunar eclipse in Pisces at 15 degrees, 22 minutes. Now, I don't normally give the minutes, but I am because there's something I'm keeping a very close eye on that I think might be overlooked and could be an opportunity for something to see ahead of time. Now, again, September 7th, we have the full moon lunar eclipse in your Pisces ninth house at 15 degrees, 22 minutes. The last full moon lunar eclipse in your Pisces ninth house was September 2024, where Saturn was at 15 degrees, 16 minutes. So this is a 6-minute difference. This is very, very tight. I mean, same degree, 6 minutes away. Both lunar eclipses in your Pisces ninth house. So I'm keeping an eye on this, but it could potentially signal whatever story was coming up with Saturn, right? So money management, transformational work, partnerships, whether personal or professional for you, Cancer rising, could be sort of coming full circle or full culmination moment September 2025. So again, keeping my eye on it, but when I see signatures where things are at the same degree, especially only a couple minutes away from each other, like so close, I think this could be sort of Saturn playing into this story. Now, the eclipse in 2024 with Saturn here, the ruler of this eclipse was again in Gemini, so it was in detriment. This time in September 2025, Jupiter will be in exaltation. So very different feel, I think, very different outcome. I'm hoping for, because the ruler is basically the landlord, like what this eclipse is reporting to is very happy, at the Ritz-Carlton, on vacation, having a great time. So typically when someone's, having a good time and in a good mood, they're going to say good things or have good outcomes. So I'm hoping for that. But again, keeping my eye on it. But all in all, this eclipse could definitely culminate themes of, teaching, publishing, travel for work, especially if you're midheavens in that Pisces 9th house. But all in all, higher education, continuing education, spirituality, religion, and travel are on the table in terms of culminating moments or sources of change or shift. Now, September 21st, 2025, there will be that new moon partial solar eclipse in Virgo at 29 degrees. Again, if your IC is in Virgo, pay attention to home, family, property, and real estate themes that could potentially come up. But this is really creating a new beginning, a strong new beginning around sort of your daily environment. Your short distance travel, your relationships with siblings or sort of people in your immediate environment. But what's interesting about this eclipse as well, the eclipses in September 2025 are very, very interesting because the new moon solar eclipse, the ruler of the new moon eclipse in Virgo, is actually in mutual reception. So it's sort of like the ruler of this eclipse this time, the new moon on September 21st, is maybe not in like the best of position, but because it's in mutual reception, it's sort of like it's swapped positions with Venus, and Venus has triplicity. So it's sort of like that show Wife Swap, where the planets aren't, in their typical places that they prefer, but they have support, they have help, or they're gaining a different perspective. And Venus in particular, when I looked into the details, actually has triplicity. So Venus actually has support and help from friends. If Venus was a person, that's kind of what triplicity means. It's like the planet has help, it has support, it has, a team of people that's sort of helping it turn into the best outcome possible. So these eclipses, in my opinion, have help. They have a lot of help in terms of the shifts and changes for what I'm hoping to be a more positive outcome and shift. Or maybe it won't feel that way, but when we look back, it will be for the better. But you can look to Venus around, towards the end of September with this new moon eclipse in Virgo, really creating this new beginning in your daily environment. But you can look to Venus or Venus ruled houses, in my opinion, for that support to whatever new chapter or new beginning you're creating around this time. And for you, it's going to be that Libra 4th house of home, family, property, and real estate, and your 11th house, your Taurus 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals. So you could look to family, you could look to people you live with, people you even consider as family, your friends, your groups, your communities, could definitely quite literally provide you the support, or the connection you need in order to launch a new chapter or a new beginning, around third house themes. I'm going to skip over the most of October. Again, I'll do a full October monthly horoscope with more detail, but I want to get to October 20th. 2025, when Mercury enters shadow in your Scorpio fifth house of creativity, self expression, joy, pleasure, romance, and children, if applicable. So, Mercury will enter shadow here from October 20th through November 9th. So, there could be contextual clues building around creative projects, self expression, how you have fun, romantic relationships, children, again, if applicable. But that Mercury rules that third house of communication and that 12th house of the subconscious. So that's telling me that, you're thinking about a lot of things and you're communicating about a lot of things, regarding, maybe creative projects, romantic situation, a children situation, or just, the desire to have more joy and fun in your life. However, this Mercury in Scorpio is not a typical Mercury. This Mercury skips the small talk. Mercury in Scorpio really wants, it's a curious Mercury, but it wants to kind of peel back the layers, get to something more meaningful, more, deeper. And as this Mercury enters shadow, it's actually going to join Mars in Scorpio. And Mars rules Aries, your 10th house of career and public recognition. And it also rules your Scorpio fifth house. So that tells me that there could be a romantic situation, a child situation, or a creative project situation that could definitely play into maybe the career, the business, or the public recognition. But there are two types of Mars, right? We have the Aries type Mars, which is I want to do, versus the Mars in Scorpio, which is I want to know and I want to figure out the way. So, Mercury entering shadow, building those contextual clues around what's going on mentally or communication wise, wanting deeper communication, potentially deeper knowing, joining Mars, wanting to find the solution, wanting to find the way, potentially regarding a career, a business, or public recognition situation could definitely come up. But all in all, October 20th through November 9th is a very strong and deep beginning to a shadow period that you could be reviewing and revising, trying to get to the bottom of. Then on October 22nd, 2025, Neptune retrogrades back into Pisces. I don't think this is necessarily the biggest deal. Again, I'll get into more detail on the monthlies, but the Neptune retrograding back into Pisces, I think, is actually kind of giving us a break from Neptune in your Aries 10th house of career and public recognition, where it's sort of dissolving, certain things that aren't maybe serving you anymore, for you to change into something with more like new structures and more longevity with Saturn. But I think it's maybe giving you a little breathing room, a little break from that. Neptune going back into your Pisces 9th house also might give you an opportunity to sort of dissolve or kind of lose yourself or uncover new dimensions or new realities or new ideas around knowledge, beliefs, spirituality, travel. Now, November, these in 2025, these outer planets start really moving into new territory and signs, but then they do that sort of retrograde dance back into their previous territory or sign. So November 7th, 2025, Uranus then retrogrades back into your Taurus 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals. So again, I'm not looking at this as the biggest deal. You've had a long road with Uranus through this 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals. However, this just looks like a last minute opportunity for you to, I mean, if you want to tie up loose ends in terms of change, innovation, regarding sort of who you surround yourself with, any change or innovation to your long term goals, before Uranus goes back into your Gemini 12th house. Now, November 9th, 2025, Mercury finally goes retrograde at 6 degrees Sagittarius. Now, December 2024, Mercury went direct at 6 degrees Sagittarius. So, something to keep in mind that you might be coming full circle, you might have a new perspective over something regarding daily work, side businesses, health, routine that you maybe were dealing with in December of 2024. This may or may not resonate because Mercury tends to do this, right? Mercury cycles tend to sort of, this degree and that degree. But if I see it, I say it, because, it might resonate, it might be worth something to you to keep in mind. But all in all, Mercury is going to go retrograde at 6 degrees Sagittarius November 9th in that sixth house of daily work, health, and routines. So because Mercury rules your Virgo third house of communication, which also includes your phone, your laptop, your car, your daily environment. It also rules your Gemini 12th house of the subconscious, your thought patterns. So pay attention to, your mind and your body, taking enough time alone to process your thoughts, your words, your health, your routines, double checking your phone, your laptop, your car. I mean, mass media, Mercury goes retrograde and everyone freaks out about, the laptop, the car, the this, the that. But for you specifically, Mercury does rule that Virgo third house of communication, which is where, your phone, your laptop, your car would be. So with it being in the sixth house, I would definitely pay attention to things that would affect your routine. So, making sure you're up to date on updates or car repair or, appointments, errands, those types of things, so that you can really take the time for yourself, rest, recharge, and just focus more on like what you need in your routine, your health, and focusing on sort of your daily work with as little or no disruption as possible. Then we get to November 29th, 2025, when that Mercury finally goes direct at 20 degrees Scorpio in that fifth house of creativity, self expression, joy, pleasure, romance, and children, if applicable. So, this is sort of moving things forward where you went through that shadow period and the retrograde period of sort of reviewing and revising not only your work, your health, and your routine and things that could affect it, but also sort of like any creative projects, things going on with your children, things going on in romantic relationships, sort of how you have joy, how you incorporate more fun and pleasure into your life. So now that moves forward, and again, Mercury rules at 12th house of subconscious and third house of communication. So this is sort of like mentally and physically, in terms of communication, you might feel more forward or more in alignment and sort of with new perspectives or new plans regarding those areas I discussed. And also just keep in mind that after Mercury goes direct on November 29th, this is shortly after a new moon in your Scorpio fifth house of creativity and self-expression, children, romance, and joy. So as this sort of moves forward, you do have a little opportunity to sort of really create a new chapter regarding what you reviewed and revised over the past couple weeks. And again, as Mercury starts to move forward and direct over the area it went retrograde, we really get into December. And on December 4th, 2025, there will actually be a full moon in your Gemini 12th house of that subconscious. So this full moon could really illuminate your dreams, your visions, maybe where you limit yourself, where you self-sabotage yourself. But either way, it's really illuminating the 12th house, but it is also really illuminating the 12th and 6th house axis. So this is really the mind and the body. So, making sure you're resting, recharging, taking care of yourself mentally and physically, emotionally and spiritually, especially because this full moon is actually going to form a grand cross with the north node in your ninth and the south node in the third. So if you're traveling a lot around this time, um, particularly for work, if you're midheaven and your IC are located in Pisces and Virgo, I would pay very close attention to, making sure you carve out time alone, rest, recharge, taking care of your health, doing the best you can to stay on your routines that really support you and set you up for success. This is a full moon, so the moon moves very quickly. So this will be a brief day where there could be a lot of adaptability. For some, there could be a lot of change. But it's important to note that with mutable grand crosses, as brief as this one is, there can be a tendency to want to change everything. So when it's not necessary all the time, it's almost like there's too much adaptability to potentially change everything. So if you're feeling sort of stretched thin in terms of needing to rest, needing to recharge, really take care of your health, your work, your routine. Maybe you're traveling a lot, maybe you're communicating a lot, maybe you're writing a lot, teaching, whatever it may be, or you're in school and you're just sort of really trying to finish things up. Just be aware of any tendencies to sort of change too much as you're finishing things or things are culminating. This is a good day to kind of pause and take a break, and good day for perspective, especially with the Grand Cross, as brief as it is. You'll probably only feel it for this day, if that, but I think it's worth mentioning. Additionally, on December 15th, 2025, Mars is going to enter your Capricorn 7th house of marriage, long-term partnership, including personal and professional. Mars rules that 10th house of career, business, and public recognition, and also your 5th house of romance, creativity, joy, pleasure, and children, if applicable. So this could overall be really heating up themes of what's going on with partnership, what's going on with your kids, romance, what's going on with, figuring that all out within a partnership, your children, your business, your career. It's Mars in Capricorn is exalted. So this tends to really heat things up. One thing I do notice with Mars and Capricorn is like I'll go out in the world, I'll go run errands, and I just notice people have a lot of energy, almost to the point where some people almost get a little manic. People who have Mars and Capricorn in their natal chart, they tend to be very energetic people. They tend to work out a lot. Depending on where it is, it's sort of like you can just have so much action and so much energy in that area of your chart. So collectively, generally speaking, I think going into especially the holiday season in December of 2025, we could really see the energy and the action heat up. But for you in particular, it's sort of like really amping up the area of partnership, whether it's personal or professional. Because it's highlighting the 10th house of career and the 5th house of romance, I think for a lot of Cancer risings, it could be both. I think a lot of Cancer risings might go into December like, whoa, there's so much going on in my personal relationships and there's so much going on in my professional relationships. And Mars in Cancer can be prone to like exhaustion. So just make sure, again, with the previous transits I discussed, highlighting the mind and body axis and that grand cross, I think it's a good time to kind of gain some perspective. How much rest do you need? How much recharge do you need? What kind of routines really support you and prevent you from overexhaustion or burnout, because Mars entering Cancer can sort of really amp the energy up. And we also have to keep in mind that Jupiter is in the opposite house, your first house, your Cancer first house of self, body, appearance, and identity. So we have Jupiter exalted in your first of self, and Mars exalted in your seventh house of partnership. So usually when there's this, typically from what I see, where there's an opposition between two planets, it's sometimes the planet that has more strength will sort of have more say in the opposition or the need to balance, or it might make it more difficult to balance. We have the planet of action in the area of partnership for you, and the planet of abundance in the area of you, your body, both in exaltation, opposite each other. And one rules your daily work, your health and routine, and the other rules your career, your public recognition, your creativity, your romance, your children. So again, going into December, things could really heat up in terms of action and expansion and the need to balance, because I think a lot might be expanding, a lot of action might be happening, and we're in an entirely different position compared to December of 2024, where Jupiter was in detriment and Mars was gearing up to retrograde into fall again. So the planet of action and the planet of expansion were not necessarily in the best position, whereas now, a year later, they have a lot of ability, a lot of resources, and a lot of strength. So this is definitely going to be a different December, with a lot more energy, a lot more need and perspective to balance, so that we don't overextend and we don't exhaust ourselves. Now, like I promised in the intro, I think it's important to talk a little bit about 2026 in reference to 2025, because they're really sort of, these years are shifting us again into this new chapter, this new wave, sort of like 2020 did, but I don't want to scare you. It's not the same thing as 2020. It will look different, it will feel different, but it's sort of like the next shift of humanity, in my opinion, to a new way. So just like a couple notes, sort of closing statements. With, like I said, in 2025, Cancer risings, generally speaking, are starting to become more blessed, with Jupiter entering your Cancer first house of self, body, appearance, identity. In 2026, Jupiter will enter your Leo second house of earned income and self-worth. So Jupiter will start to expand the area of self-worth, material possessions, and earned income, generally speaking. Now, it's important to note that when Jupiter enters your Leo second house of earned income and self-worth, it will start to trine your Aries 10th house of career and public recognition. Trines are sort of a natural positive. It's sort of like trines, you don't have to try that hard. Things just sort of naturally happen. But keep in mind, in 2023, definitely 2024, we had those periodic Saturn Jupiter squares. Now the squares can be quite tense between Jupiter and Saturn, because Jupiter wants to expand and Saturn wants to stop and pump the brakes. And those squares were tense for a lot of people, where it's like, where do I move forward? Where do I pause? Where do I restructure to sort of continue expanding? We do get a little bit of that in 2025, like I mentioned, when Jupiter enters Cancer and squares Saturn, and I believe Neptune in your Aries 10th house of career and public recognition, sort of as that hip check before you start to expand. But in 2026, even if it's not by degree, Jupiter and Saturn will be in a trine configuration between fire houses. So this will, in terms of pumping the brakes and sort of restructuring versus expanding, there might be more ease in doing that compared to previous years. The other thing I wanted to talk about was Uranus and Gemini. Now, Uranus entering your Gemini 12th house, like I said, can really start to shake up and cause a lot of rapid change. It may take a few years to feel this, depending on your personal placements, but it can definitely create innovation and change to sort of your subconscious, your dreams, your visions. Some people I have noticed over the years, when Uranus goes to the 12th, they sort of have like a subconscious awakening, or they have a lot of memories come up, or their intuition or even psychic abilities start to sort of shake up and increase. It's just something that sort of happens. It's very interesting. However, when Uranus is in Gemini, it's going to trine Pluto for the first time in Aquarius. So you have the planet of change and innovation in a trine configuration, creating sort of things sort of naturally happening with the planet of transformation in that 8th house of transformation, investments, assets, debt, other people's resources. So a lot of mental, subconscious stuff with Uranus, creating the natural sort of ease or change and transformation to 8th house resources, investments, debt, assets, and even transformational work. I would pay very close attention to sort of mental thought patterns, the change of mental thought patterns affecting your finances or transforming your finances. I would also pay attention to how mental thought patterns shift and change rapidly, and how they naturally transform your fears or any transformational work that you're working on, if that's an area of focus for you. But either way, I think individually, this is definitely an interesting trine between these two. But collectively, we could really start to see old patterns dying off. New technology, new ways of communication, information, and I actually think sort of rapid change where community-based living or different ways of doing business, or community-based business, or just more humanitarian, more like rapid change to do good, to less greed, and hopefully do more. I'm hopeful about that. But a lot of acceleration and change at a rapid rate, I think, is very, very possible with Uranus and Pluto in this trine configuration, especially between a sign of information and communication and a sign of sort of the collective, the humanitarian, the group. In addition to the Saturn-Neptune conjunction that I did discuss in the 2025, but it will happen again in 2026. But this time it's going to happen at the Aries point. So these Saturn and Neptune are going to join at 0 degrees of Aries, which is quite rare. And 0 degrees of Aries is a critical degree. It's a very sensitive degree. It's also called the Aries point, and it adds a level of sensitivity or critical importance to the conjunction happening here, where I think, for you, it's happening in the 10th house of career and public recognition. So I think there could be a heavy importance on dissolving something that really no longer serves or is no longer a structure needed for business, career, or public recognition. Again, Saturn rules the area of partnership, other people's resources, and transformational work. So, sort of dissolving maybe through transformational work, dissolving boundaries or structures within partnerships or the desire for partnerships in order to build and create more structures that are going to work long term or really are. It's sort of like if you look back on, hundreds or thousands of years, a lot of times we keep old structures. And it's sort of like when you buy a really old house and it's a really old foundation, but you renovate the house, but you don't change the foundation. And at some point, there will be cracks in the foundation, or the foundation doesn't really support the house that you want to maybe rebuild or add a addition to. So for you, it's sort of like the analogy or the image that I want to give is sort of like if that house is your career, your business, and your public recognition, and you've modified it, you've extended it, you've changed it, you've added all these things when you originally created the foundation for it. And 2025, 2026 might be the time where you actually look back on the foundation or the structure which you originally built it off of. And you might say, it's time for a new foundation. It's time for a new way of doing it. It's time for a new, stronger, $1 million foundation for $1 million business, essentially. So just something to think about as you go into 2025, 2026. Again, these transits don't happen like super fast in your face. Like you'll have time, you'll feel it, you'll think about it, don't worry about it. You'll know when the time is right. But again, collectively, I think we're really going to move into a time where these old structures and these old ways of doing things is just not going to work. And then we have Uranus and Pluto in a trine configuration, really ensuring the rapid acceleration of change and transformation, individually and collectively. It's more, not individually, but I think collectively it's a little bit more concerning for me, because I think people who maybe aren't ready for it are going to struggle with it, because especially with the trine configuration and conjunction, it just sort of happens. At least with a square, we feel the tension and we kind of can like untangle things a bit before taking action a lot of times. But I think with this, like it's just going to happen. And like we've had many years to kind of prep or think about it, prep ourselves for the level of change that we've obviously all gone through. But lastly, I just want to say, the north and south the north and south node are going to move into Aquarius and Leo. So the north node is going to make its way into your Aquarius 8th house of transformation, other people's resources, investments, assets, debt, loans, all that stuff. Basically, long-term money management. And the south node will be in your second house of earned income and self-worth. And so the nodes are really moving you into your financial houses. And I think with the north node going into the 8th, I think a lot of people think negatively and they go, oh, the south node in the second, I'm going to lose all my money. And that's not necessarily true. you have to look at the nodes, not necessarily individually, but collectively, right? Where there's a south node, there's an opposite north node pulling you in a particular direction. And with the north node in that Aquarius 8, sort of like, where do you want to invest? Where do you want to transform? Where do you want to put your money long term? And again, looking at this whole scope moving into 2026, it's sort of like, what structures or foundations or things are you dissolving regarding career, business, and public recognition, where that north node is then going to move into that eighth house and be like, okay, where can you think long term about money, or where you want to invest, or what your assets are, or what your resources are, or what you want to transform as you're sort of given the opportunity to change how you do business, or what businesses you pursue, or what careers you pursue. But with that being said, it is an absolute incredible time to be alive with all of you.